Shalom, this is Daniel Stern of Netivyah coming at you from our offices in Jerusalem. And as the title says, we want to talk about whether Trump can bring peace to Israel and to the Middle East. Now, first of all, this is a subject that we've covered over the year and a half of the war and recently and since before the election and after the election. So feel free to look at the older videos that relate to the subject. But let's talk about this. As you may know from previous videos, generally my opinion is conservative, is right-wing, is pro-Netanyahu, is pro-Trump. So bear that in mind as you listen to me, because if you disagree, which is your prerogative, I can't force you to be right, then you know where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm super objective. I have an opinion. That's life. Live with it. Okay, so we saw that when Trump was elected, then things changed in the Middle East. We saw that Israel and Lebanon signed a 60-day truce in order to stop the fighting in the north, which isn't entirely in effect, but overall it's holding. We saw suddenly, out of the blue, after many months of silence, there was new talk about negotiations to get hostages from Gaza, from the Hamas. And you may remember, and if not, then this will be the first time you heard it, that President-elect Trump himself said that the hostages better be returned or they'll be hell to pay. He wants things to be quiet during his term. Now, obviously, Trump is not a wizard, and he too is under the control of reality. He cannot bend reality to his wishes, and the reality is what it is. Nevertheless, we can see that the world is on alert. The world knows that change is coming. We can see that Russia is changing their talking more about wanting to end the conflict in Ukraine. Likewise, the Ukrainians, Zelensky, just a few days ago, talked about wanting to end the conflict. Now, obviously, end and end are two different things because each one thinks about how they want it to end. Likewise, here in Israel, there is talk on all sides of the map about bringing the hostages home. But those on the left talk about it by giving in to all the demands of Hamas and freeing tens of thousands of prisoners and abandoning the territory in the Gaza Strip, thus allowing Hamas to rearm themselves, allowing the multi-billion-dollar industry of smuggling weapons, people, contraband, and so on to go back to operation, which happens through Egypt and the Hamas's heavy cooperation, something that Egypt is not happy that people talk about, but nevertheless it's happening. So they want an abandonment of all of Gaza and allowing the Hamas to rearm and thus have October 7th happen again and again. They want, again, the tens of thousands of Palestinian terrorists and murderers that will be released. They don't care about the future and about the hundreds and thousands of Jews and Israelis and foreigners who are in Israel that will be murdered. This is, of course, I'm not just speculating here. This is exactly what happened in the past. Every time there is some kind of a hostage negotiation, you can look at the Gilad Shalit episode as an example, the left pushes very, very strongly to negotiate and bring back our boy, Israel's boy, the entire country's boy, Gilad Shalit, and get him released, and they don't care what the cost is. It's imperative that he's released, similar to the exact wording that's being used now about a hostage deal. It's imperative, it's the number one priority. Getting the hostages home is the most important thing. Yes, it's important. Yes, everyone wants them home, but some people read the right, read the Likud, read the conservatives, are not willing to hand over the keys to the nuclear power plant that doesn't exist and we claim we don't have to the Hamas in order to get them home. We're not willing to give them everything and anything they demand, which is different from the left that says no matter what they ask for, give them anything, and they're willing to burn the country down in order to push for a hostage deal that would be ludicrously irresponsible and would without a doubt cause murders of dozens, hundreds, and thousands of people. So, anyways, going back to Donald Trump, because I segued into the issues between the left and right, Donald Trump is putting a lot of pressure on the Hamas, which is the right place to put pressure on, in order to secure a hostage deal. And in the last few weeks, we see that this is having an effect. Egypt and Qatar both say that things are in the works, and within days to weeks, there should be a done deal. Now, the deal itself is, we'll have to get the details and see what kind of deal it is, but from what I understand, it's talking about releasing sick and elderly, as well as 5 hostages that hold U.S. citizenship, which of course, for anyone paying any attention, is proof that the pressure by President-elect Donald Trump is what's causing this. Otherwise, those 5 would not be included, like they were not included in the past. Now, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I don't know, because if those 5 are released, then it's very possible that the U.S. will then stop putting pressure for future deals, and we'll see what happens. But moving back to peace in the Middle East, peace in Israel, right now, the Houthis in Yemen are attacking from time to time, sending missiles, from time to time attacking the shipping lanes, and so far, the United Kingdom and the United States were the ones who were responsible for answering that aggression. They were the ones that told Israel, we'll deal with it, don't worry. Israel, don't handle it. We, the United Kingdom and the United States, will handle it. And so far, they haven't handled it very well, and the Houthi attacks continue. So, I suppose that the entrance of Donald Trump into the picture will change that, because the United States will be a little more aggressive, and consequently the Houthis will lower their aggression. What else? In the last year and few months, any talk of normalization with Israel by Arab countries led by Saudi Arabia was put on hold due to this war and due to the fact that, unlike Donald Trump, who pushed the Abraham Accords, the Democratic leadership in the United States, while happy to receive the laurels of success, aren't actually pushing and didn't push to advance peace in the Middle East in any way, shape, or form, with the exception of a terrible, terrible deal between Israel and Lebanon, which provided nothing to Israel and gave up billions of dollars of resources in territorial water that was under argument for about 20 years. Israel gave up all of what they've been arguing for and received nothing in return except a promise of security that turned out to be about as useful as a screen door in a submarine. So that is what the Democratic leadership in the United States, Joe Biden, achieved in his 4 years. Utterly useless and detrimental agreement. And conversely, previously, Donald Trump's Abraham Accords were incredibly successful, and I hope and pray that more will come now that he's returning, and I expect more to come. I expect Donald Trump to force Russia and Ukraine to sit down and settle their war. I expect Donald Trump to strangle Iran financially to such a point where they too will come back to the table, especially after the beating they received from Israel and the vulnerability that they have. And I expect Syria, which we'll talk about in our next video more, to also come to a amicable situation, some sort of power sharing between the Kurds backed by the United States and the Turkish-backed militias and other external influences such as Israel, which will help the Syrian nation to find a peaceful way to coexist. What else? Well, hopefully with the help of some external Arab forces, we'll find some solution to the Gaza Strip that will allow Israel to have security control and yet allow for local and external Arab forces to help run the civilian government in such a way that Gaza can be successful as opposed to the decades past where it's been, I don't want to say a hellhole, but I guess that would be as good a description as possible. And with the new government in the United States, which only has 4 years, but hopefully they'll be able to push for positive change and peace here in the Middle East. Another factor that we didn't talk about is that the left-wing deep state political figures in Israel that have been attacking Benjamin Netanyahu for the last 2 years will have less of a back-in by their progressive liberal supporters in the United States now that Donald Trump has come in, and that will give the legitimate, legal, democratically elected government of Israel much more stability, and that too can allow for peace to be made. When the country is stable, it's more able to do foreign policy without riots at home. So, to summarize this hastily put together video about Donald Trump's peace initiatives, I believe that Donald Trump's election in the United States will stabilize the world in a much more conservative and grounded way, as opposed to the previous liberal progressiveness that frankly has brought more wars to Western countries and the rest of the world than any other regime that can exist. So God bless you all, and as always, pray for us here at Netivyah. Pray for Israel and its leadership. Pray for the innocents that suffer throughout the world. Pray for our soldiers. Pray for our hostages. And if you have any thoughts, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please, please write them down. Certainly if you have any corrections to make, I'm always glad to hear them. And next video, we'll talk more about Syria. I got a lot of pushback on my claims that Russia and Israel were working together, that Russia assisted Israel in its actions in Syria, the recent ones. People told me I'm a liar. People said that's not true. I will be more than glad to expand on that next video. God bless you all. Shalom.